Hey, you murder phoniacs. This is your host, Tony Ciaglia, the serial killer whisperer, along with my co-host, oh yes, the one and only, the man with the plan, the Coxman.
Good to be here, bud. Good to be here.
Great to be here. Man, do we have a show for you guys today. You're going to love it. This is big time stuff. I'd like to welcome back one of the best golfers I know. Not Tiger Woods. No. Not the Golden Bear. Not the Golden Bear himself, Jack.
No.
And not Rory. Forget it. His name, also the one and only, Bob Cyphers. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
It's great to see you.
Hello, guys.
Great to
As
see you,
far as
buddy.
the golf, yesterday I played in my Prune Juice League, which is for golfers 65 and older. And on a team of 30 golfers, my team finished 30th.
Yes. Hey, drop the zero. You got 1, 2, 3, the top three, right?
I played along with an 86-year-old man, and he was out driving me on every hole.
God bless him.
God bless him. That's excellent.
86.
I'd also like to welcome back the identical twins with all the answers, Adam and Aaron Murray. Hey, guys, it's great to see you.
Great to see you guys.
F10.
This is pretty cool because,
Yes,
we got Vegas, we got Illinois, and we got the East Coast.
The Carolinas, South Carolina.
South Carolina. We're all over the map here.
Yes, we are.
And with technology.
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
With technology, though, we're all right here.
It's cool.
It is.
And I'm not just stuck in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, it's been 32 years since I was hit in the head by that jet ski. And it's been 32 years since this maniac committed his first murder. I think it's time, with the help of Adam and Aaron, Bob, and Murder Phone, that we give the detectives what they need to catch this fucking piece of shit.
Okay, we talked on the last show, guys. And if everyone is in agreement, after Bob, you ask your questions, after you guys answer and ask your questions, I have the name and pictures here. So if we're all in agreement after you guys talk, and if, Bob, you think it's worth investigating, I will send you the email and we can get this thing going. Does that sound good?
Yes, sir.
Bob, you guys, that sound good to you?
Yeah. 100.
All right.
100%.
And Bob, you're the man. You know the right people to take it to and get this thing investigated. It's teamwork. And we're just hoping and praying that this case will come to a close after we're done here today. Or not today, but after it's investigated. So, and this was Tony's part, and he gave it to me. I think it's time, with the help of a couple of murder phoniacs. See, I don't say it like Tony.
Yeah, that's
I know.
No.
Give it to him, man.
Murder phoniacs.
All right.
There we go.
I think it's time to close this case once and for all right here on Murder Phone. So, Bob, if you are ready, fire away. The guys, they have your attention and you have theirs.
Thank you. First of all, Aaron and Adam, thank you very much. Anybody coming forward, my whole goal of the book here is, it's not to make money for Bob. Trust me, for the hours and time I put in, they'd be paying me a nickel an hour, and I'd go broke and bake quick. my whole goal is here to support the police detectives in their search, the families to try to get this solved. I'd give this book away on the street corner to every person I could meet to read it and say, if you see something in here, please call the police. There's interesting facts in here. There's strange things in here that might stick out to somebody. And I'm hoping something might ring a bell for people that have bought the book, read the book, and they can pick up the phone and make that phone call. I guess I would start with you folks. I know you're from, I don't know a whole lot other than you were from, you mentioned thought he was a truck driver from Pennsylvania. I know Interstate 70 goes from basically Denver to Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C. on the East Coast, but there's no evidence here of crimes as far away as Denver or as far away as Pennsylvania. Everything is really centralized from what looks like the first homicide scene they know of in Indianapolis, and then you're just moving chronologically or geographically: Terre Haute, St. Louis, Kansas City, Raytown, before Texas may occur a year later. So my first question is, I in the last time I talked with Al and Tony, they mentioned you guys were from Pennsylvania, and that's where you thought this may have started with a truck driver. And I'm just trying to see what your connection from how you think he went from Pennsylvania as a citizen to possibly starting a crime scene 500 miles or so away in Indianapolis.
Yes. Based on what he told us, that he would drive Interstate 70 on his, I don't know who he checked for or anything like that, but he definitely talked about I-70, and it was very memorable because knowing that he did drive 81 going north and south, he never really talked about 81 really. He would always talk about Interstate 70, how he enjoyed. He really liked Missouri. He said, if I could live in Missouri, his whole life better than Pennsylvania. And it's so I know that he did drive an I-70, but it is really far from Pennsylvania. And at that time in the early 90s, like you said, we didn't know. So we're going on what he told us. We made him in 1907. And it's possible that before, it's possible that he could have lived in the Midwest before he even lived in Pennsylvania during that time. But we can't really say for sure.
Okay.
Going by what the profilers have told me at Quantico, a couple things that might help you or might stick out or make us put the puzzle together. They believe if he is alive today, he'd be in his late 50s, which would put him in his late 20s at the time of the killings in 92. And if you guys met him about 5 years later, he would be in his young 30s, if that seems to ring a bell for what you'd pictured. Although the homicides are all similar, there's one really interesting, quirky, out-of-the-world reason for one of the homicides. And I'll ask you about that if you ever heard about that. And that is the second one in Wichita, where the two women are killed at the bridal store. So the first homicide occurs in Indianapolis, and then 3 days later, 800 miles away, the second homicide occurs in Wichita. And the police detectives and the profilers at Quantico all have come to the same conclusion, that he didn't just get in his car or truck and start driving and go all the way to Wichita to make his second killing, that for some reason he had to go to Wichita for a reason, for a purpose. There must have been something that takes him all the way to Wichita, because then he turns right back around and comes back to Indiana. Did the word Wichita ever come up in his life, or do you recall any reason for that? Any family members, any work reason, any military reason? The police are convinced that of all the sites, he had to have a reason to go to Wichita, a specific reason that he could not miss. Did the word Wichita ever come up in his background with you guys?
I don't recall him mentioning Wichita, but he, like I said, he was in the military, so maybe he was stationed out there. But I only remember 3 of his duty stations, but it may have been involved But, once you have a specific reason, you be back to your duty station, you have to be back there by a set time, because if you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah, well, I don't think it could have been that, because he left the next day to head back to Terre Haute. So if he was military, he was AWOL. Well, let's go on to the other specifics about the case then. The weapon involved, such a strange murder gun, a World War I German Navy target pistol called an Irma Werke. Not many people in the world ever heard of this gun, have this gun, seen this gun. Again, the profilers say, just like Wichita, where there must have been a reason to go to Wichita, there must have been a reason to have such an odd gun when nobody else in the world has one outside of German relatives across the sea. Did the Irma Werke ever come up? I think Tony and Al told me last week that you guys thought he was a gun collector and knew a lot about guns. Such a strange, odd thing. Did he seem like a collector or know a lot about guns? Or if you knew anything, if he had a collection, was there anything that appeared to be out of the ordinary from what most people would collect at guns?
Well, he did collect guns. And he like we told Tony, he had a variation of like orders, hunting rifles, shotguns, and handguns. He had a couple of 9mm and a lot of 22 caliber handguns. A lot of his guns he would keep in his green military duffel bag, especially when he was on the road. And he had a lot of 22 caliber pistols. And I can't really say for sure if one sticks out more than the other, because the collection was so vast. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, almost 22 pistols are the same, but he did really like 22 caliber pistols. He had at least 5 that I can remember, and he would always comment how 22s are useful in close quarters and can be easily suppressed. The ammunition's cheap, and he would always say this weird thing a lot about how a 22 caliber to the back of the head is effective. It turns the brain into mush, and then he'd laugh about it. And which was very strange, because he said that a lot. And then when we started getting to know Tony and the case better, we were like, that's a little strange. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily mean anything, but it's pretty fucking, excuse my language, it's pretty damn strange. And he did have several 22 caliber pistols. That's probably his favorite.
On the other side of that coin, one of the police detectives told me that he was pretty sure he would not be a gun collector, because if he was a collector and had a wide range of guns, he would have never have picked this particular gun as his murder weapon. He'd have been afraid that it doesn't work. You walk outside, it doesn't work in your backyard. Why would you take it on a murder spree? So the thought is kind of like, no, this is probably not a collector, but it's probably somebody who has had the gun handed down to them through their family, through their years. Some great grandpa was in World War I when the Lusitania was sunk. That's the answer to the trivia question as to what started World War I. They sunk the Lusitania. So that, it's not the kind of gun you buy in the ghetto in the trunk of somebody's car. It's just, that's what you would happen to have. Do you know if there's any German heritage in the family? Anything war related that might have been mentioned for World War I, specifically, I guess, with Germany?
He claimed he would always brag about being of German descent. But as far as anything about World War I can't really say, but he was very proud of his German heritage. And, there's a lot of German history. That doesn't really mean much, but he was definitely proud of being German.
Yeah. The other strange thing about the gun, before I let that go, again, that just sticks out, is that the shell casings that they found, that I eventually tied this to a serial killer case, were all wrapped or cleansed with jeweler's rouge. again, not the kind of thing that your typical criminal or just random killer is even contemplating. Oh, I'm going to go get Jeweler's Rouge to clean my bullets. That's almost like an expert person who knows something about how to cleanse bullets, or knew that particular gun that jammed a lot knew something about it. Any background in this guy's case with any relatives in the jewelry business, or did he have a lot of jewelry, flashing rings or watches? Did anything stick out that might connect a jewelry issue to the gun issue?
Good point. He himself didn't really flash a lot of jewelry, but he did have a so-called uncle that did. So if it had anything to do with the jewelry business, it could have been his uncle's. But as far as him, he never mentioned anything about his involvement in the jewelry business. But his uncle had a lot of jewelry. But he called him Uncle Donnie. Allegedly, he was affiliated, but he had all types of jewelry. This guy was your typical old school, mustache Pete type of guy.
Yeah. The crime scenes, with the exception of Terre Haute, where Mick McCown, a male, was killed at a store was named Sylvia's after his mother. Mick had perhaps long hair, perhaps had a ponytail, we're not sure, but was dark hair, brunette. The other women were basically all brunettes. Younger women, same age type, all brunettes, no blondes. Could have been a coincidence. Again, you're dealing in somebody crazy. It's hard to say there. You can put two and two together. But any evidence that he may have had any specific issue, not just with women in his past, but specifically with brunettes?
As every girlfriend he had, we knew him were brunettes, and every girlfriend he was with, he had problems with. He was verbally abusive, physically abusive. He mistreated them like it was disgusting. But he always went after brunettes. No other hair color, always brunettes.
Interesting. I know you guys have taken the book, and I appreciate that. If you've looked at the book, you'll also notice that the crime scenes, money's not really the issue here. That's what we first thought. We go in, somebody's dead at a strip mall store, and there's a cash register here, and money is still there. So robbery was clearly not the motive here. Was this gentleman that you're looking at somebody who you think would have wanted money? Oh, by the way, there's an empty cash register sitting right here. My victim's already dead. Why would I not take a couple $100 out of the cash register? Or was he wealthy and did not need the money? It's just very odd that you would not take the money that's sitting right in front of you for when your victim is already dead. Does that surprise you at all?
Well, yes and no, because, most people would probably take money. But with him, who knows? I'm not sure if he needed it, but he could have been maybe doing it as a distraction, because he was sort of a mentor to us, and he would always do kind of some very weird military stuff, espionage, all this stuff, and he would always drill into our brains of how you could, how important it is to distract opposing forces, this and that, the other thing. So maybe it was a distraction, but probably not. It's just very strange that, most people really would have taken the money, but he was not wealthy. Every now and then he had side jobs he would do. But he did work in the military. When he got out, he drew a pension. So that was his primary income. But he didn't really have an extra amount of money to throw around or to brag about, to show off. He just had your typical, could barely get by month paychecks.
Exactly. And again, the profilers, as they try to put this difficult piece together, feel like, well, if money's not a consideration, maybe he's fairly well off, or he doesn't need the couple $100 sitting at all these scenes. But if he's not well off, there's no reason in the world not to just grab a bunch of 20s as you're walking out the door, and yet he did not do that. And I want to bring back the appearance a little bit now because I've got a couple of opposite things I want to ask you. And our two best witnesses are probably in Raytown and in Houston. In Raytown, where he kills Sarah Blessing, at the store right next to Sarah's store is a video store where the video owner sees what he describes as a very preppy, well-dressed man coming toward his store, staring into the window. And the owner of the store is like, wow, our store is kind of in a lower level area, and we usually don't get guys wearing, nice jackets and nice slacks and a nice pair of shoes. He was really, the word was preppy and well-dressed and well-groomed. That's the suspect who 20 seconds later, we hear gunfire, and then the video store owner sees him running up the hill to get away. That's our killer. He's preppy. That's the word. He is preppy. Meanwhile, in Houston, Vicky Webb, who has survived what could be the I-70 killer, could be a different killer, she has a different description as a very weathered, jockey-looking type of guy, somebody who'd been out in the sun his whole life, and his face was kind of worn down, and he looked older than he was. Those are opposite descriptions. Does either one of those seem closer to the other to your suspect?
It does, because he was a well-dressed man, somewhat preppy, but his health failed quickly. He had hepatitis C. He drank heavily every day. He was a heavy smoker. And whenever about 10 or 11 years we knew him, it was surprising how quick we can notice his face just deteriorating from bad health. And then when the older we got, he did look malnourished, leathery face because of all his smoking. His skin, his face was leathery. And it didn't take long for the transition.
So give me a year that you think the leathery thing may have come into play with Vicky Webb's description. What year might that have been?
About 2000.
And the reason I ask that is, now let's go to 2001, the Billy Brosman video back in Terre Haute. That suspect does not look, I don't think, weathered yet. That guy would still be preppy looking. He's walked into the door. In fact, the people who have identified him or have come forward and said, I think I know who that might be, they keep talking about a preppy looking guy they ran with who had his pants cuffed up all the time, and this guy had his pants cuffed up. So in 2001, at least, the preppy looking guy, we don't think it's the weathered guy, Vicky's guy, or the guy you're perhaps describing in 2002. That would not be the guy of 2000. That would not be the same guy of Billy Brosman. You've seen the Brosman tape. That does not look like your weathered guy, correct? But it might look like your earlier guy.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're at that time frame of, and again, we're just guessing the time frame, 2000, 2001. So the Brosman video, if we can go there now, which is in 2001, basically 10 years after the serial killings of the 90s. That guy, again, not only is he leaving money in the tin, he doesn't even take his beer after killing, and he's got the same motive of in and out, back of the store, shot to the same exact thing. You'll also notice if you watch the Brosman video, after he takes Brosman or tells him to walk around to the back of the store, he blocks the store's entrance, like he stands over it for a second, okay? And this guy's not concerned, obviously. If you or me are going to go kill somebody in any one of these stores, I guess my first concern might be, is somebody going to walk in? I mean, I'm not doing this in 5 seconds. I might be here a few minutes. Is somebody going to walk in? And that's exactly what happened, of course, in Wichita, where the Cumberbund customer did, in fact, walk in. But let's go to the Brosman video. I was told you guys saw that video. Here's the real chance to look at somebody who, I got to tell you, when at the end of the day, through 30 years of investigation, through all the detectives, through all the task force, through all the DNA, through everything we are doing up to today, and I spoke with the detectives today, the Brosman video is their best lead. They believe in their hearts that the Brosman killer that they have on tape is their best suspect for the I-70 killer. That's what they're holding on right now as they keep hoping for DNA or more likely somebody from one of these shows like Murder Phone to come forward. So on that Brosman video, I know you've seen it. I need you to be as honest with me as you can. Is that the guy that you believe you grew up seeing? And what kind of percentage, not just does he look like that guy, any mannerisms, anything interesting in that Brosman video?
Oh, yes, definitely. The way he walked, his cupped up pant legs, his long bony fingers. We always remember how skeleton-like his hands were. He had a wedding band, and we always think, how does that thing stay on his hand? And when he put the 6-pack of beer up there on the counter, that's the first thing I noticed it reminded me of, as a child, looking at his hand. There's his bony hands, And to me, he walked like him, he looked like him, his hair, his mannerism. That's why I wanted to see that video, to see if I could feel on the recognition. And he was very recognizable on about 95, 97% sure as him. It was fairly convincing. It was fairly convincing.
Could I ask
so
one
the
thing?
Bob,
could I ask one thing?
Video.
Bob?
Go ahead.
Just, they had mentioned the jacket that he wore too, which he didn't just mention. So they said that he always wore a jacket that style, which looks a little preppy. I never heard the preppiness before until you talked about it today, but they had definitely mentioned the jacket stood out. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, in his pant legs.
I just wanted to point that out.
You guys don't recall what his favorite type of beer was that he might have left sitting on the counter, do you?
I recall him drinking, I don't know if it's his favorite. He did switch a few times. Milwaukee Best, I recall him drinking, and he was a Pabst Blue Ribbon drinker.
All right.
But
Yeah, well, can't blame that.
much like our mother, he knew how to change beers. Yeah.
So I spoke with the police department today just to give a quick update on the case for the Murder Phone fans, and as we keep going forward. And all I knew was from what I spoke to Tony and Al last week, they told me that the man was referred to as Crazy Ray. Yes. And so there are two main police officers who are handling the task force in St. Charles that organized. The man who organized it is Captain Raymond Floyd. And so I called him today and I said, Captain, I just want to run by and see if this name's ever come across just this phrase of Crazy Ray into your research. And he said, he paused and he said, yes, Bob, it does. My wife calls me Crazy Ray every day. But other than that, they did not have a Crazy Ray from Pennsylvania. Now, I can tell you this, 90% at least of all of the tips that the police department gets or the people that have reached out to me with their tips, and I can say it's also 90%. I've even had somebody come and ring my doorbell on a rainy morning with a tip that fit the 90%. How they found me, I don't know. But 90% of the tips are all the same. It's my son-in-law or my ex-husband.
Oh.
They're just furious at the former men in their lives. And I know you guys aren't, but that's where most of their tips come from. And I can tell you also this. In St. Charles, the police department investigates every one of those. They might hang up the phone. They might chuckle. They investigate every single one. They pick up the phone and call.
Yeah,
they have called on thousands and thousands of names and tips. They called 65,000 people who were registered at hotels or campsites at all of these cities during these homicide scenes back in the 90s. It was so bizarre that one of the people they called to say, "Where were you? What's your alibi?" was Kevin Costner. It just shows you that, and obviously when they're going to pick up the phone, they know Kevin Costner's probably not the serial killer, but they still made the call. So whatever your tip is, whatever your lead is, I'm not even sure you need me. You can pick up the phone and call the task force yourself. They'll be happy to talk to you. They know we're doing this today. They said, "Bob, make sure they call us afterwards." They will not laugh at you. They will not make you feel bad. They will investigate it. They will call, and that's all they can do. And that's really all you guys can do. They're not going to pry you for anything more than what you know. They're just going to look for a name and they're going to start digging. So I would not be afraid or concerned for coming forward on any reason at all. Every time somebody contacts me, I give them the name. I say, "Here it is." A couple of weeks ago, I got a crazy call. A woman was on our phone, not with me, but with the publisher of my book. I'm getting text one night from him saying, "I've got some woman on my phone. I can't get her off the phone. She knows who the killer is." And they're going on and on and on. And finally, I texted him back and I said, "Is it her ex-husband or is it her ex-brother or is it her ex-son-in-law? Which one is it?" And sure enough, after a half an hour, he writes back and says it's the ex-son-in-law. Well, we still gave the police tips and they still called on the case. So they will call. I mean, and they're appreciative. And I can tell you that when the book is titled Dead End, to some extent, it is a dead end. I got an update today on the DNA samplings on the shell casings, which was their big hope. And it looks like that's not going to pan out. And we had the wedding veil in Wichita. We were hoping for DNA, or Mick McCown's pants. We were hoping for DNA in Terre Haute. Right now, it's not going to pan out. And, the genealogical DNA is out there right now in a lot of cases, but because this case has been touched by a lot of different detectives and the evidence was not a lot, it's probably not going to pan out. This case is going to turn on, let's talk about what's least likely, a confession. Probably not. And I'm not even sure. Is your suspect even still alive, guys?
No.
He's not. Well, we can rule out confession then.
And Bob,
we're in agreement there.
Bob, the name is a pseudonym. You have to understand the group that came around these guys. You don't know their upbringing. It was very tough, and it was Hell's Angels. It was people just hanging out at the house drinking. There's a lot of people out there that they'll freely admit. Back me up, guys, that are dangerous. This guy, we didn't want to put his name out there for their safety because they didn't know if somebody'd recognize it, come to them. They don't like snitches. Why are you doing this? So the Crazy Ray was a pseudonym. It's not the real name. I just wanted to let you know that. Okay.
I just got a kick out of that with my captain. That's all.
That is funny. That was funny.
Thank you. So if we're not going to get a confession, the second hope for police is still some sort of science evidence. It may not be DNA, but the world is changing. DNA is evolving. We never heard of genealogical DNA 10 years ago. We don't know what's coming in 10 years, but time goes by. And if he's not alive today, he may not be alive in 10 years. Third, they're really hoping against hope that somebody picks up the telephone and makes a call. And the last thing out there on that is going to be this book. There's not going to be another task force. They're done with that. There's no, other than taking tips and making calls, there's not a lot they can do today for evidence. And to get a phone call is going to make a real difference in the case. And they are not giving up hope. And they do believe that phone call is coming, whether it's from Adam and Aaron, or whether it's from the crazy person that rings my doorbell. We don't, we'll take anything. And the ability to crack this case, which the FBI is basically right now calling as hard a case as they've ever had, because I mentioned before, we know why Ted Bundy killed. He was going after the sorority girls. We know why Dahmer killed or Gacy killed. We know the motives of a lot of these things. There's just nothing here. There's no motive here. There's no reason here. You're in and out. You're not robbing. You're not raping. You're not doing anything. And then, oh, by the way, you're going to Wichita and turning around. And, oh, by the way, you're using a 100-year-old gun that doesn't work. And, oh, by the way, maybe you went to Texas a year later or came back to Terre Haute 10 years later. There's just too many things here that are not a typical police investigation. And for the profilers, it just became impossible.
Guys, they talked, and I thought it was pretty interesting, about a motive. Would you like to explain to Bob what you felt his motive was? We discussed this.
Yes.
Okay.
Crazy Ray was extremely physically and emotionally harmful towards women. He would always beat women. He bragged about beating his women, and he bragged about sodomizing them. He was a very cruel man, and that was from the words of his stepson. A very cruel man. And he just was not a woman to the peace at all. And it would get to the point where in a relationship with a woman, he would get so angry, fed up, and he would just apex of rage and just beat the women shut up and get arrested and brag about sodomizing her to everybody. All of this belittling behavior comes across as psychopathic, sociopathic, and everything else. And it's very unusual. And if there was a motive, that could be it, because he was definitely that type of person. He was very cool. He didn't have respect or love for himself. He especially didn't respect or love women. And he was just a giant asshole. And he was very, very abusive, to the point where one of his ex-girls had girlfriends, Kathy, a brunette, and her two boys, Jesse and Damien. At that point, Crazy Ray he lived about 3 blocks away. He was fairly close. They came running to her house one time, frantic, scared about how, oh, Jeannie, my mom, Jeannie, Crazy Ray, he said he's going to kill me. And she was shooting us up. He beat me up. Her boys were scared, shaking, crying. We never seen him like that before. And obviously there was some type of abuse there in that scenario. And she would exclaim, he's going to kill me. He said he's done it before. He said he's killed women before. I know he's telling me the truth. And he was a little bit odd. We thought maybe she was exaggerating, except for the fact she was very obviously physically beat. And my mom tended to her. He was scared shitless. The hunger scared shitless. And thinking back on it, it just seems really weird. And that's not saying, that it's him because she said that. It's just really weird that she would say that. And that was just the type of person he was. He was a giant asshole, which is why God took his legs and then eventually his fucking leg.
Damn right.
Yeah.
I've been saying that to my dad.
Yeah.
He gimped him for the last, 6 years of his life?
About.
Yep.
So, guys, if I can, let's look at the time frame. When did Crazy Ray pass away? Do you know? A year?
2018, I think that's when his stepson told me.
Okay, so 5 or 6 years ago?
Right.
Okay. And when might have you guys started thinking or heard of the I-70 case? Had you heard about it before then and started thinking about him, or after he had passed?
Beforehand, I would briefly hear about it. I didn't really know too much about it. I didn't make the connection with him. It wasn't something that stuck out to me until his stepson told us that he was involved, allegedly suspected. And so then I started looking up the case, looking at the police sketchings, reading the details of what went down and stuff like that, and seeing if I can, recognize any details. And that's when I seen the sketching of him, it hit me. I'm like, hey, maybe this is something.
So the stepson, so I'm clear, told you that his father was a suspect in specifically the I-70 case or in other cases?
The I-70 case.
A suspect in any other cases?
Not that. That's all he said. If there was, he didn't mention it to us.
Okay. So, and when would that have been roughly? If he passed in 2018, when would you first have started hearing he might have been a suspect in this case? Rough, just a guess.
At least a solid year. A solid year.
Oh, a year before he passed?
No, I mean, a solid year from now, I should say.
Yeah.
Oh, so just like last year.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So you've delved into this case. I know you've looked at my book. You've watched some videos or documentaries, and there's other things out there besides Bob's book. Bob's book is not the end all. Any thoughts on everything else that you've seen? Did anything ring a bell? Anything catch your eye more than other things? Anything that seemed more important than other things, or anything that you can pass along to the detectives? I mean, I'm going to call the detectives tonight, and they're going to watch the podcast, if nothing else, besides talking to you guys. So, again, anything that you can put out there that can help them, they're going to want to hear.
Right. I'm not sure if it's much more, aside from, what we told you about, allegedly from his stepson when he first messaged me about it. So I'll just get that. And I forgot that he passed away. He says, well, he's dead as hell, but, and he referred to him as a womanizer, made man, and a serial killer. And I'm looking at the message, and I'm like, yes, I realize he was obviously a womanizer. Made man that's kind of weird, but that made me think of Uncle Donnie. And then I said, what the fuck do you mean serial killer? Are you being hateful because you hate the bastard? And that's when he said, well, allegedly he was suspected, but he wasn't frog marched, as he called it. He wasn't frog marched to court because he was on a medically induced home at the VA, and they couldn't do anything. That's what he told me, and that's what really made me think, what the fuck? So I started researching it and looking at sketches, and I'm like, well, I mean, it's not a perfect sketch, but it's very close. As I watched the video blew my mind, and putting the time frames together, that's what really made me suspicious. Not saying that, I don't think it, I'm not saying it's 100%, but everything, it kind of fits together in a way to which I believe it should at least be investigated.
I really think that the sketches, you guys, when he's in the wheelchair, if you look at that guy and you look at that asshole who walked in to the gas station, on film, I see it. I really see it. I was telling him that yesterday. Sure, he's older, but the face structure, definitely.
Bob, I just sent you his name and 3 pictures of him
Okay.
on email. That way you can compare them to the sketches.
Okay. I got it.
Did you get it?
Yeah. Guys, I want to go back to, because I think this will help the police more than anything.
Okay.
And that's the Brosman video, as they try to tie that to the I-70. So let's go back to when he's walking in that door with his jacket, his now preppy look. Okay. So we're in 2001. His wedding ring, you mentioned the fingers or whatever. Walk me through and walk the police through what your memories are of seeing that video and why you might specifically think that guy is your guy.
Well, aside from the feature that you mentioned, his way of walking was virtually identical. He moved like he had a purpose, as if, he was somebody trained, and his pet legs were the robot pet legs. He did that almost all the time. And his confidence and his bravado was almost like he was either trained and gained that sort of confidence, or he had done it before and gained confidence from multiple, repetitions of the same thing. But that really made it convincing for me, to the point where I watched the video over and over and had the same feeling with each one.
What about you, Adam?
I agree. I felt the same way. And but pretty much everything Aaron said, I feel. But the one thing with how he moved, we have this phrase in the infantry, slow, smooth, as fast. It's a certain stride we have when you go into, let's say, Iraq or whatever, you clear house. So smooth, as fast. And when I seen how he moved, that phrase came back to me. It was like watching. I've seen people move like that before. Soldiers, and to me, he moved like a soldier.
Let me ask you this. The stepson is still alive.
Yes.
If the police, and they don't know his name, but I'm not saying you should give his name, but do you think, if the father is dead, do you think the stepson might cooperate?
I would like to think so, or he's also a veteran. He served in the Navy. And, the stepson, Stephen, I'm not going to give his last name right now, but he has a brother who is the biological son of the man we're talking about. So he does have a brother. And yes, they're both still. I think they're both veterans. Well, hopefully they'd be more than him.
And the reason I say this is, we're all responsible for our own lives, but not everybody else's life in our world. And, if his father is dead and gone, and this stepson could do something to help the police solve the case and give the families closure, I don't think there'd be hatred toward the stepson. I think there would be, that's an incredible gift you've given by coming forward, because that must be awkward for you. Nobody wants to be associated. But the help for these families, who I've met, all of them, and their hearts break to this day. It's just unbelievable. But if he is dead, I think that's a different case than if he is alive. Now, the police have a suspect that they call their number one suspect that is alive right now and living in the Midwest, and they think it's the Brosman guy, and they think the Brosman guy did the 70 guy, and they're trying to get more people to come in on identifying the Brosman guy and taking that evidence, just the Brosman case, to a prosecuting attorney right now and going forward. And if they get a conviction there, then they start making conversations for deals or whatever. But that's just their hope or their long run. Your story is completely different than what the track they're going down right now, with somebody who is dead and it's not that guy. So again, I can go to the police for you. I can put them in contact with you. I can give you numbers for you to contact them. I can tell you this. You pick up the phone after this show is over and you call Ray or Kelly and say, hey, Bob told me to give you a call. They'll talk your ears off right now. You'll make their day. They'll be happy. They'll do whatever they can do to make you feel comfortable or whatever. So it's really however you guys want to do it. I don't think you need me. If you want me, I'm happy to help. By gosh, I'm happy to do anything. So it's really your guys' call on how you want to go forward, and I'll help you in any way that I can.
Sure. Okay, we'll contact them.
Kelly, Detective Gold.
Guys, if you've got the book, there's a hotline phone number on the back cover. When you call, you either ask for Kelly Rhodes. The case is hers right now, RHODES, female, or Ray Floyd. He's the person who launched this task force and brought everybody back together. And he's probably the one.
Crazy Ray, right?
Crazy Ray. He's the one guilty of bringing me into this mess. So, seriously, they'll take your call in a heartbeat.
Okay.
What?
It's an
real
honor.
real quick, guys. We didn't touch
Yes.
on the laugh, and this kind of jumped out at us, Bob. The laugh that Vicky had said when the gun clicked, and she described the laugh. As
Keep in mind, before I hear the laugh, if we're going on time frame, Vicky's describing the very weathered, worn down jockey in 1992. I don't think from what I'm hearing, when they met this gentleman in 97, he was still the preppy guy. So
yes,
Vicky's description is not the same for the time frame.
Okay.
But go ahead. I'd like to hear the laugh regardless. Yeah, you guys are good.
It's so creepy.
Isn't it creepy?
Oh.
Do you guys have any questions of me that I can help you with before you pick up that telephone?
No, not at all. I think everything's been touching. As far as the phone call, I don't have any questions for it.
Well, tell Kelly and Ray I said hello, and I'm very grateful for you guys, anybody that's watching coming forward. That's what it's all about for me.
You're great, Bob.
Okay, cool.
Bob. Yes.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
You're so well spoken. It's amazing.
It's easy to speak to. Yeah, it's really easy to speak with you. And watching the podcast that you were on, I felt comfortable with you with coming forth to this.
Looks good.
We're not really big on reporters because of our experience with Iraq and everything, but we like you.
Yeah, we like you. Yeah.
Same here. Thank you very much. Very kind.
I vouch for you, Bob. Didn't I tell you he was a good guy?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I said you'll be very comfortable with this young man.
Of course, he's from the Midwest.
Yes,
Prune
absolutely. Well, listen, I'm really happy. I'm happy that we could bring everybody together. I think these guys are onto something, Bob. I pray that they are, because we just want to have closure for these poor families.
Yes.
If that could happen, I know the hours you probably put into your book. I understand that. So does Tony, and the passion that you've put into these cases. And if they have the answer, and these families can go to sleep one night and understand this is the guy that did it, it's not going to fill the hole, but it's certainly going to bring some closure. And that's what we want to see.
If it happens, we're all going to Quantico at the same time, and Murder Phone's going to be broadcasting live across America.
Well, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
We would enjoy doing it.
Let me say one more thing. Can I say one thing, guys?
Certainly.
Yeah, I just want to say this has not really been my usual Murder Phone.
The way you're hosting. You're hosting.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'd like to say is this guy, this Crumble, this Leach, he was a mentor of you guys when you were young. And I just want to throw in there, I myself had a mentor service. Many ladies here in the Vegas area, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I've been pretty chill since then. But I just wanted to know is, I understand mentors.
See, he had to throw it in.
I had to get that in there,
guys.
guys.
Had to throw it in. 'Cause his brother said, "What are you going to do today, Tony? It's going to be just real." He said, "I'll figure something out. I have to get it in there." But the one thing I know, Bob, I don't know if this is the I-70 killer, but in all the conversations with these two gentlemen, I know the guy's a scumbag. Yeah. And I don't feel bad if he's not. He's not. But after hearing the stuff that he's done,
right? It's really the same thing. It's the same thing, Al, with Vicky Webb. We don't know if the guy who left her for dead is the serial killer or not. But either way, some scumbag tried to kill her.
Yeah.
Whether it's guy number A or guy number B, she doesn't care. All she knows is somebody tried to kill her, and he's still out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Did she recover 100% from?
She's a fantastic woman. She still has the bullet in her neck, lodged into her neck. It's been there for 30 years.
Oh.
They told her they can take it out safely.
Oh,
She says no. She says, I want it. I want to wake up every morning where the first thing I feel is that bullet in my neck. And I will never, ever forget that day or that bastard.
wow.
God bless her.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, let's wrap it up, boys. Yeah. It's a dangerous world, though. I'd put 2 on. Take care, guys. Take care. Stay safe. And remember, always walk in the calm after the storm.